Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Coffee Rant with Dano and Frank, our Patriot Bald Eagle. If you have to pause on this video to get your coffee or whatever beverage you deem necessary, go ahead and do that now. We got another cucumber recall, guys. If you guys remember back in December, there was another I think it actually went as far back as November. There was a cucumber recall for the possibility of salmonella. Now there is an investigation going on from the FDA of another cucumber recall with more than 20 people sickened in salmonella outbreak, as NBC News website says here. And it's all over the internet. This is I read one from Newsweek, a couple other sites. Allrecipes.com had one. This one we're going to read from NBC News. Their headline says cucumbers recalled after more than 20 people sickened in salmonella outbreak. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration said the cucumbers were distributed in 15 states, including Florida and New York. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced a recall of cucumbers grown by Bedner Growers Incorporated and distributed by Fresh Start Produce Sales Incorporated because of a multi-state salmonella outbreak that has sickened more than 20 people. The FDA on Monday said in a statement that cucumbers were distributed to restaurants, wholesalers, retailers, and distribution centers from April 29th to the present day. And today is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. The FDA is working to determine where the potentially contaminated vegetables were sold. Quote, cucumbers may have been sold individually or in smaller packages with or without a label that may not bear the same brand, product name, or best by date, the FDA warned, end quote. Quote, for distributors, restaurants, and retailers who have purchased these cucumbers, the products were labeled as either being supers, selects, or plains. FDA investigators are conducting a follow-up inspection of the cucumbers last month, collected a sample that came back positive for salmonella, and, quote, matched recent clinical samples from ill people, end quote, the FDA said. The inspection was a follow-up from a Salmonella africana outbreak linked to Bedner Growers Incorporated last year. Fresh Start Produce Sales Incorporated also issued a recall of whole cucumbers in 2024 due to possible salmonella contamination. According to the CDC, or Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, salmonella is a bacterium that can sicken those who consume it by eating contaminated food, drinking contaminated water, or touching animals, their fecal matter, or the areas they live in. People who contract the illness can have stomach cramps, diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting anywhere from 6 hours to 6 days after infection, and symptoms can last up to 7 days. And they call this one Salmonella montevideo, is a type of Salmonella enterica bacteria. According to the CDC, the bacteria are a, quote, a leading cause of foodborne illnesses, hospitalizations, and deaths in the United States and worldwide, end quote. The bacteria causes about 1.35 million infections in the U.S. every year. Quote, children younger than 5, the elderly, and people with weakened immune systems are more likely to have severe infections, end quote, the FDA said. According to the FDA, as of Friday, at least 26 people had been sickened by the outbreak in 15 states, including Florida, Alabama, California, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Colorado, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. 9 of the patients have been hospitalized, and 11 out of the 13 patients who were interviewed about eating cucumbers. 9 of the patients have been hospitalized, and 11 out of 13 patients who were interviewed reported eating cucumbers. In a statement, a spokesperson for Fresh Start Produce Sales said the company, quote, is committed to protecting public health and helping Bednar growers with its recall, end quote. Quote, the company is contacting its wholesale and regional distribution center customers to ask that they provide their customers with recall instructions, including notifying any consumer point of purchase locations, end quote, the spokesperson said on behalf of the company. The FDA said any restaurants, retailers, or distributors that have potentially contaminated cucumbers should throw them away and notify customers. Well, hopefully they get their money back either way on that. Quote, consumers, restaurants, and retailers who purchased or received potentially contaminated products, including wholesale products, should carefully clean and sanitize any surfaces or containers that it touched, end quote, the FDA recommended. Those who do not know if they purchased a cucumber should contact their suppliers to make sure, but if they are still unsure, they should throw them away. They should throw away their cucumbers and sanitize the areas where they were stored. The FDA's investigation into this outbreak is ongoing. Now, this happened today. I saw it this morning. NBC was one of the first ones to cover this. It came out on the CDC's website. So it originally came out on this. They pulled some information from the CDC website. I'm going to go back here for just a second, and we're going to check out. I saw that Newsweek had posted one on this. And you can Google cucumber recall and whichever website you want to read it from. It is taking the internet by storm right now. Okay, so looking at Newsweek here, this one was at 4:54 p.m. So this was just a few minutes ago. This came up. Cucumber recall map as salmonella outbreak investigation. Sparks investigation. Okay, we're gonna just kind of nearly. Recall for cucumbers. This is from Newsweek, from Bednar Growers Incorporated in Florida, has been issued amid the fear of potential salmonella contamination. A salmonella outbreak investigation is also ongoing, as nearly 30 people have been reported sick related to the recalled cucumbers. And that's why I wanted to pull this up for a second, because this has the tendency to grow. It has the tendency to get bigger. So if anybody who has had from the Bednar Farms or Bednar Growers Incorporated out of Florida, any cucumbers, I would be a little hesitant to eat them and be very cautious, because this just came up today. So as we've seen with these recalls over the years, especially with things like salmonella. Salmonella's been a big one. If you guys remember, about a year and a half ago, we had the salmonella outbreak through the different cantaloupes. They didn't know where it was coming from. They kept saying, "Well, don't eat the sliced cantaloupe in the stores. Don't eat the ones that people have been, cutting up." They thought maybe there was some kind of cross contamination with that, and then we came to find out that it was actually the cantaloupes, the cantaloupes themselves. And then there was a specific area where they were from. Stores were throwing them away left and right, but not before a lot of people had gotten sick from them. So, it's just something we have to pay attention to these days. And it's not like this is new. This has been going on for years. Things happen. Listeria, salmonella, outbreaks of these things happen. What's important is that we get on top of it as soon as it does happen, so that if you've gotten any products from these companies, to know that, hey, the possibility of this is pretty good at getting bigger. There's an ongoing investigation by the FDA with this product. So chances are, I'm glad they're getting the information out here early, right? Sometimes we'll come into, we'll talk about these things, or it'll just pop up, and we won't have any information. We don't know where it's come from. We don't know anything, right? So at least we know where it's coming from. And let's see, here on Newsweek, they actually have a map. Let's talk about this for a second. So the map here, so a lot of states out west aren't included in this yet. And this is the different cases. This is the illness map. Okay, which is interesting because we have one case in California, one case in, and then the next state that is of the closest where there's been an illness reported has been Colorado, and then just east of Colorado, Kansas. So there's been one reported illness in Kansas, one in Colorado, and then one in California. And then over here, as we head toward the more middle to eastern states, this is where it starts to get a little clustered, right? We have one illness reported in Michigan, one in, let's see, one in Michigan here, one in Illinois, one in Kentucky, one in Tennessee, one in Ohio. Now, see, it's kind of funny, not funny, but it's kind of strange the way this goes. And it's kind of like, okay, was a main truck route for these cucumbers on I-75 or I-65. Let me take you through the interstate. And this is why we talk about these things. You know, we used to map things out like this. When we were finding empty shelves or increased prices on groceries, which we still are today. But as far as like, you know, where we saw where products were being delivered, we were tracking I-70 and I-40 for months, right? And we were able to determine that most of the areas off of here were fine, but the areas just directly north and south were areas that weren't getting a lot of products. You know, we are way south of I-70, and I-70 cuts through Dayton, Ohio. Okay? And back a few years ago, when there wasn't as much product going around for whatever reason, many reasons, it was taking a while for these to go through like the main arteries of the country, the interstates going north and south. Well, this, if I was to determine, if I was looking at a pattern here, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida. Now, Ohio and Michigan, we'll count Michigan too, because Michigan goes through off of 75. If we were coming down south off of 75 through Ohio, and then Kentucky, Tennessee. Now, Alabama, maybe the truck route crossed through 65. Okay, because 65 goes through Louisville, Kentucky, and then goes through that part of Tennessee and Alabama. I-75 does not go through Alabama. However, it does go through Georgia, and Georgia is not on the list of any reported illnesses from this. But if I was a gambling man, I would say this is a possibility. Okay? So if you are, in Georgia, I would pay attention for these cucumbers. Okay? Because the direct line goes Ohio, Tennessee, or Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, then Alabama. So we have like a crossover through where I-65 is. And this is a direct line north and south. Obviously, if you go through Alabama, like Mobile, Alabama, and you come near the panhandle of Florida, these have been coming out of Florida. Okay. So, and there's only one reported illness in Florida as well. Now, if we go up the East Coast, South Carolina, and remember, these are only reported illnesses. Somebody could get a little cold or something, and it could be that, and you may just never know, right? That's most of it. Now, South Carolina, and this goes all the way up the East Coast, which could also mean direct line through 95, okay? Which 95 does go through Georgia. However, no illnesses reported in Georgia yet. Okay, so hopefully there's not. But I would be willing to bet that these cucumbers have been traveling through here if the investigation determines that this is the cause of these, which I'm sure it is, or they wouldn't report it. I seriously doubt they would report these because all of these are in connection with people eating those cucumbers, or they would not have this map. At least I hope not. South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, all along the I-95 highway, and a very small stretch of 95 that goes through, Georgia, through, I guess, Savannah, Georgia, and then we cross over up into Pennsylvania and New York. So that is why I wanted to check Newsweek, because I saw that they had this illness map on here, and I saw a pattern. And wanted to check that out just to see, if there's any kind of jump we can have on this to see which directions these are going. So out in California, there's a lot of space between California and where we are. Now, as we saw like through Missouri or Kansas, um, you know, it goes Kansas, Colorado, and then we got a while, which that could be going east and west some direction. We don't know, and it could have just taken a turn, or maybe not a lot of people getting those cucumbers. But that's obviously a direct path, right? Because you got Kansas, Colorado, and then a couple states over, you got California. California is the only state affected right now as far as one illness that's been reported. Many states, as they say, 15 states have been reported as of these having the recalled cucumbers. So, we'll just have to pay attention. If there's any updates on this, I see this as a pattern of what we were talking about with the cantaloupes like a year and a half ago. It got really big, and I just want to make sure that if you're watching our channel that you're aware of what's going on with this recall. I'll tell you, I get so tired of all these different recalls, but it's something we have to talk about, guys, because if you have one of these items in your fridge, I want to make sure that you are able to get it out of there, not eat it, and clean it up. Make sure you clean the area of where you had this. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching tonight. If there's any updates on this, I will let you know. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.